Hello and welcome back. I'm Aditi. In the previous section, we learned about different text functions. And now in this section, we are going to learn about the statistical functions. So let's begin this lecture with minimum, maximum and average function. The minimum function returns the smallest value from the numbers provided. Let's say we want to know the smallest age among all. For this, we use the minimum function. We just write equals to minimum and specify the range. But first, we just click on the first value and then we press Ctrl Shift down key and press Enter. This returns the minimum age. Similarly, if you want to know the maximum age among all, we can do so by using the maximum function, which returns the maximum value from the numbers provided. We write equals to max and specify the range in the same way as we did while using minimum function and press Enter. Now this returns the maximum age. Next we have the average function, which returns the mean. So now let's find out the mean age. For doing so, we write equals to average and specify the range in the same way as we did while using the earlier two functions minimum and maximum, and then press Enter. This returns the average age. We learned about the three statistical functions: minimum, maximum and average. Now in this lecture, we are going to learn about finding the standard deviations in Excel. So let's begin. A standard deviation is a quantity which refers to how much the observations differ from the mean observation of the group, or in other words, the standard deviation is the spread of data distribution. We can calculate the standard deviation in Excel by the formula STDEV and STDEVP, where STDEV refers to the standard deviation of a sample and STDEVP refers to the standard deviation of the population. We have different formulas for finding the standard deviation of a sample and for finding the standard deviation of the population. The formula for finding the standard deviation of a population is the square root of the sum of the squares of differences between each observation and the mean of all observations divided by n, where n is the number of observations in the population. Whereas the formula for finding the standard deviation of a sample is the square root of the sum of the squares of differences between each observation and the mean of all observations divided by n minus 1, where n is the number of observations in a sample. So let's try calculating the two in Excel. First, we would try calculating the sample standard deviation. For this, we write equals to STDEV and specify the range by Ctrl plus Shift plus down and press Enter. This returns the sample standard deviation. Next, let's try calculating the population standard deviation. For this, we write equals to STDEVP and specify the range by Ctrl plus Shift plus down key and press Enter. This returns the population standard deviation. So this is how we find the population and the sample standard deviation. We learned about finding standard deviations, and now in this lecture we are going to learn about finding percentiles of data. So let's begin. A percentile is a measure used in statistics indicating the value below which a given percentage of observations in a group of observations fall. We usually find the 25th, 50th, which is also known as median, and the 75th percentile of any given data. The formula for finding the percentiles in Excel is percentile array k, where array is a range of values and k is a percentile value which we are looking for. Now let's try this using Excel. Here we would be finding 3 percentiles, 25th, 50th percentile and 75th percentile. Let's start with finding the 25th percentile of age data. We simply write equals to percentile and specify the range and percentile as 0.25 and range from the first value of the age column to last value by using Ctrl+Shift+Down key. This returns the 25th percentile of the age column, which means it returns the value below which 25% of the observations lie. Similarly, we find the 50th percentile value by simply writing equals to percentile and specifying the range and percentile as 0.50 and range from the first value of the age column to the last value by using Ctrl+Shift+Down key and then press enter. This returns the 50th percentile value, or we say the median of the age. Next, we would try calculating the 75th percentile. We would follow the same steps. We write equals to percentile and specify the range and the percentile as 0.75 and the range from the first value of the age column to the last value by using Ctrl+Shift+Down key and then press enter. This returns the 75th percentile of the age. So this is how we find the percentiles of the data. And now in this lecture, we are going to learn about finding outliers in the data. So let's begin. Outliers are extreme values that deviate from other observations on data, or in other words, outliers are the observations that deviate from the overall pattern of the data. The outliers in the data are usually the observations which fall beyond the Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR and Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR. We already know from the previous lecture how to calculate the different percentiles of data. Q1 is the 25th percentile and Q3 is the 75th percentile. So we already calculated the Q1 and Q3 value. Now let's find the IQR or interquartile range as Q3 minus Q1. Then we calculate the upper cutoff and the lower cutoff for finding outliers in the data. The upper cutoff is calculated as Q3 plus 1.5 into IQR and the lower cutoff is calculated as Q1 minus 1.5 into IQR. Now we will count the number of observations which fall beyond the upper and lower cutoff. First, we calculate the upper outliers count. We use the countif function, which counts the number of cells within the range that meet the given condition. So we write equals to countif and we need to find the observations greater than upper cutoff. So we use greater than sign and specify the upper cutoff and also specify the range of the data from the first value to the last using the Ctrl+Shift+Down key and then press enter. This returns the count of observations falling above the upper cutoff. Similarly, we find the count of observations falling below the lower cutoff. So we write equals to countif and we need to find the observations less than lower cutoff. So we use less than sign and specify the lower cutoff and also specify the range of the data from the first value to the last using the Ctrl+Shift+Down key and then press enter. This returns the count of observations falling below the lower cutoff. This is getting pretty exciting, right? And this was how we find the outliers in our data in Excel. In this lecture, we're going to learn about finding the missing values in data. So let's begin. Missing values are the observations which are not stored in the data. We can find if there are any missing values present in the data in Excel by using the command countBlank, which returns the number of missing values in a given range. Let's find out if there are any missing values in the age variable. So we write equals to countBlank and specify the range from the first value to the last value, and then press enter. And we get the results as 0, which means there are no missing values in the variable. Now let's create a missing value manually in the age column and click on that cell again. And now the result is changed to 1, which shows we have one missing value in the age column. Similarly, we can find out the missing values in other variables as well by just specifying the range in which we search for the missing values. And here comes an end to this lecture. In the next section, we are going to learn about some logical functions which are commonly used in Excel. Till then, goodbye and stay tuned.